Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Techospace podcast series. In this podcast episode, I'm super thrilled and honored to welcome one of the most eminent and prominent dignitaries belonging to the community development and industry leaders, Mr. Chris Mazur, who happens to be the director of community development of Tetrate company. Now, Chris, off to you. So, why don't you introduce about yourself and give a complete description to our listeners?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity at Hill. So yeah, really appreciate the time and the invitation to join your podcast. Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Chris. I'm a software engineer. I have been working in the industry for a couple of two decades right now, but so in the past 2 years, so focusing more in the community side in terms of being involved with the tech communities, which is basically had been my passion over the past 12, 13 years. So currently I'm working as a community director at Tetrate, which is a tech company working on the Istio and Envoy open source projects, which are CNCF projects. And yeah, it's a company heavily involved on the open source ecosystem and the whole community as well. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for me to be involved and connect with community.
That's a brilliant introduction, Chris. So now, Chris, at the stroke of this hour, which is 10:05 a.m. Indian time, let's kick off with the podcast episode.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
All right, Chris. So Chris, tell me about this. Like, how did you begin your journey in the IT industry and what sparked your interest towards the tech world?
Well, that's a long time ago. So that's I started my career in the probably my interest in the tech community started probably in the early 90s. So at that time, so as you probably can imagine, it was a completely different world, right? So it's basically no internet, no email. So it was a completely different scenario in terms of what's the basically IT industry was at that time. And yeah, so always was a passion about to kind of solve problems and trying to kind of build something through computing and processing, and that's basically what's initially triggered my interest from there. So and yeah, so since I finished the secondary school, I joined the, the university, started the university in the computer science degree. So yeah, practically my whole career was involved in the with computers and in the tech industry somehow. Um, I bought my first computer when I was 21 years old, so that's probably
Okay.
that's probably can give you some ideas about how old I am and when basically I start the this journey in the industry. But yeah, so was a very exciting journey and yeah, something probably completely different to what is right now, right? So it's was a completely different uh, time at that moment. So
That's a pretty interesting insight. Now, if I would just like to ask about the computer, what computer was that? Was it like Macintosh or any locally manufactured Argentinian computer? Like, which one was that?
I think that it was a Pentium. My first computer was a Pentium 133 megahertz, 2 or 4 megabyte of RAM. So something very kind of wild if you think right now. But yeah, at that moment was I remember was a quite powerful computer, and I was very proud and very very happy with that computer. But again, so that was probably in 1995, 1996, something like that. So it's yeah, it's there was I remember with my uh, classmate at the university. So we don't even had email. So it's basically the whole interaction was just sharing the floppy disk. I don't know if you have the chance see one of them was a very small devices that basically you copy content and you share. So that was
Right.
basically yeah. I think that my first operating system was Windows 3.1 or something like that. So
Oh
it's
my God.
yeah, very
You
very
know,
painful time. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I come from the 90s era. I'm a 90s born kid. So, I totally understand the concept of floppy, but I have not got the opportunity of using it myself. So, not pretty much, acquainted with it to be very honest. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
interesting
What
times, I would say for sure.
that was a whole challenge in terms of sharing content, particularly when the content was basically the size was bigger than the disk capacity, right? So it's basically that's mean that you have to partition the content in multiple disks,
Yeah.
and hopefully one of those disks won't be corrupt when you try to recover the data. So yeah, was a fun time. So yeah, it was a really fun time. Yeah.
It's a fun time, but the people who are hearing to this podcast, especially millennials and Gen Zs, if the new social media trend, the Gen Zs and millennials, if they hear that, they would be really like, oh my God, that's a pretty tedious process. And probably we are pretty much lucky to be born in this era. Something like that, some kind of statements would come from their end.
Something very very interesting was my first kind of one of my first kind of formal serious job was not necessarily related to the IT industry, so it was more in the pharmacy industry doing production. So was about building. So was yeah, it was a pharmacy industry, and I was
Okay.
like doing admin task there, right? Then we have two different branches, and I proposed to one of the managers in the company, say, hey, there is something called mails that actually you can send message from one computer to another one. So,
Wow.
and then I remember I did the whole configuration. I think that was a novel network at that time. Um, and basically I was able to connect both branches via email. Um, and was the whole company completely surprised about the possibility to send messages through the computer. And that was in 1996. And was not
Okay.
even internet. It was basically like an internal network. So, but the whole thing, the whole concept to being able to communicate without something that was not a fax or a phone call was a completely new thing for the company. And basically from that, so the whole company very quickly migrate to basically establish the mail as a main communication channel, right? So it's uh, but yeah, at that time, so was extremely new. So now it's quite obvious, and it's very kind of we probably something that we don't think much. But so there was a time that all those things not even exist at all, even in quite big organizations. So it's yeah,
That,
that's
that's brilliant to know, Chris. I mean, Chris, when you have, given this initiation to that pharmaceutical company, probably I can say, Chris, you're a trendsetter and, you're going ahead of time, with respect to trying the new trends, I would say.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, Chris. So now, Chris, I just wanted to understand this. Like, how did you first get involved in this, in these tech communities and open source projects?
Well, I think that so that's something that I started to be involved with open source communities back at the university, right? So at that time, so the whole Linux movement was start to be more, particularly with the Ubuntu community. So it started to be kind of something more active, and there was more uh, kind of there was more knowledge about the okay. So you can connect, you actually can connect with other people. You actually can learn together. You have a space to basically make questions and learn something. and that was a very very exciting time. So I think that was not at the same level as probably we know right now in terms of communities being extremely connected and kind of like a like a right now it's very very common that everyone might go to a specific community. At that time was probably something more in each going to a specific communities. And but yeah, so being involved with at the university with the Linux community was something that initially triggered my interest in being involved in communities. So back in probably 2012, 2013, yeah, 2012. So I started to be more and more involved with a few dev communities back in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And then, well, at the same time, so I was my whole family, so we were planning to move to New Zealand, which is where we live right now. And yeah, so that's basically triggered my interest in being connected with people working in the industry for multiple reasons, right? So it was learning, giving back to the community, and yeah. So since then, so I had been kind of heavily involved in community projects, particularly around events, meetups, and all this stuff. Yeah.
That's pretty good info, Chris. Now, Chris, I mean, during your university time, how did you exactly understand, that there is a community of Linux? Was like anyone, I mean, from your class, or let's say a class member, he approached you, or how was the social, I would say the social outreach, or let's say the exchange of information happening during that time?
Well, so at that time, so was actually, for example, so having a copy of your Linux distribution was not exactly like you can make an installation today, right? So at that time, so you were able to download or you were able to actually send a letter to, I don't remember if it was Ubuntu or which community it was, and you actually request the CDs, and basically they send to you the CDs, and that's and then when you receive the CD, you were able to install the operating system on your PC, laptop, whatever, right? Um, Kind of that process somehow start to connect not only with the possibility to get the software itself. So it's basically there was a whole thing around to connecting with other people as well. So I think that at that point there was a very early stage of companies being involved on open source and trying to build community. So I think that
Okay.
probably that part was kind of part of the initiative that they start working on community. And on the other hand, so the there was a kind of a necessity from students and from the local community to basically connect each other and learn together. Because, for example, in my case, so I'm coming from a Spanish speaking country, right? So it's basically at that time was very hard to even get content or learn in Spanish, right? So it's basically all the
Oh,
content was in English, and not many people spoke English at that time. So now it's a lot more common, but at that time was not
yeah.
really um, so kind of the necessity from everyone to connect with people speaking the same language and having the opportunity to connect with local people was a kind of a must for in terms of learning something, right? So it's a yeah.
That is pretty that actually explains it all. Now, in the university, was there any Linux group of such, Chris? Like like having a Linux community in the university itself, like any student body of that sort?
Yeah, there was multiple groups in at the university, but what I particularly so the one that I particularly remember more was kind of being involved with the Ubuntu community, which actually was kind of a more global community at that time. So yeah, I think that so probably I think that the Ubuntu community lead from people who actually are quite active they are still very active in the community. I think that that's probably was one of the uh, kind of the organizations that basically lead the whole kind of community approach from organizations like involved in the open source ecosystem, right? So it's yeah, I would say the Ubuntu community was probably one of the strongest from my perspective or in my own experience, right?
That's brilliant, Chris. Now, Chris, like you being part of all these tech communities, how do you think that has shaped your personal and professional growth over the years?
Um, well, I have I moved to New Zealand in 2013. So that was basically part of like a uh, at that moment. So we were a very young family, and we were looking for kind of big challenges in life, and also having different experiences in life as well, right? With that said, so it's basically we moved to a new country with a completely different culture, with absolutely zero contact and almost no English as well. And basically, one of the strategy that I applied to basically as a shortcut to connect with people was being involved in communities. And so as soon as I moved to New Zealand, so basically the community was like my space to connect with people. It was not only about to connect, it was about to even learn English, because I was not able to be exposed to English enough in the past before moving to New Zealand, right? So it's basically probably trying to be more in contact with community was the first and the easiest way for me to not only connect people working in the industry, but also being exposed to the local culture, plus being exposure to English, which is sounds very basic, but sometimes it's a huge challenge, right? So even now,
Sure.
it's a big challenge for me. Um, so that's from the kind of I would say the first highlight from my perspective in terms of my personal experience being in community. But other than that, so what I personally see is that building that network of people that potentially might be there for you, helping, or even you helping them in the future. So it's to me the value that you can find in community, right? So that's where all the value and where all the interesting part is around community.
Absolutely. That is completely an explainable point, Chris. Now, Chris, on a personal note, I just wanted to understand this because I'm not pretty much familiar with it. So, how do you see the scenario of tech in your home country, Argentina?
Um, uh, so you probably you can analyze this in kind of uh, in multiples um, stage of during the last 2 decades, right? So it's basically right now. I think that there is a I'm extremely optimist. I'm extremely optimist what is actually happening in the whole, not only in Argentina. I'm extremely optimist about what is happening around the IT industry in the whole Latin America. I think that so it's one of the most exciting region in the world right now in terms of
Interesting. Yeah,
what is happening in the industry. And that's not only apply to community thing, right? So I think that so community back in particularly in Latin America is a kind of there is a very strong necessity to belong to a group of people, to your tribe. I think that you actually can feel that every time that you are involved at any kind of tech events or tech community back in those countries. But particularly with the what is happening in the industry right now. So there is huge talent there. Many people are actually working for companies in the US, Europe. So
Okay.
it's a quite mature ecosystem in terms of the industry itself, and still the education is particularly at the universities is still quite quite good. So I'm extremely optimistic about what is coming for the tech industry in particular in Latin America. So I think that it's a great moment to be there to explore what is happening. There are a few countries quite investing a lot of energy in making kind of those tech hubs, and yeah. So for example, so Brazil
Hmm.
is one of the countries that most contribute to open source in the world. So
Okay.
and that's something that is not very popular, but so yeah, so kind of the importance and the kind of the level of energy and commitment on those countries in the open source community worldwide is quite significant. So it's a super interesting what is happening there. Yeah.
I would say it's a super interesting future that's going to come by.
Yeah. So obviously that's so I personally think that there are a few regions that are quite interesting what is happening. So definitely South America, Latin America is one. So India, China. So there are kind of different regions, but so because you ask, so and what's the region that I know most? Yeah, I know I also I'm very optimistic about what is happening in South America right now in terms of the tech industry. So I feel that with the whole AI thing coming, so
Yeah.
it's a interesting times ahead. So it's
Of course, of course. I mean, I would say that, AI would bridge the gap between the countries like India and South America, and probably Indian people, the people who are working in India, or let's say the Indian people who are working abroad, they'll probably get projects from South America. And since you're just saying that, the South American tech is expanding and improving, then I would see the the possibility of that in the future for sure.
yeah. So definitely I feel that all those new technologies, so and basically sometimes all those kind of new waves of technology sometimes helps regions or people or even organizations to kind of make a shortcut in terms of kind of upskill, update their opportunities, and maybe for multiple reasons they might be behind the industry for could be for any reason, right? But so kind of all these new waves, for example, the AI gives opportunities to basically say, okay, so this is where the future is. Let's put all the energy here, and basically whatever happened before. So it's not that necessary like we might think, right? So it's because the whole paradigm, so everything, the whole industry, even the whole kind of the way that we know life in terms of interaction, in terms of working and everything, so might change. So that's I think that the AI thing is a huge one,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's we will see what's the future is, right? So it's but yeah, again, so
Absolutely.
very optimistic about kind of the present and future of region like Latin America. So yeah.
Chris, whenever you're saying optimistic, it gives me a different vibe altogether. It gives me that positive feeling. You know,
Yeah. So um, it's it's based not because I'm only it's not a feeling. I'm particularly in the last probably 1.5 years. So I had been trying to be more in contact with people and organizations back in Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Paraguay. Paraguay is a super interesting country in terms of what is happening in the tech industry and the
oh,
whole kind
really?
of So it's so it's something quite interesting is happening there for multiple perspective. And yeah, so yeah, massive talent. So
Okay.
they really want to build the next new things, and yeah, and you can actually feel that there is a vibrant community, a vibrant professionals trying to build quite interesting thing. And yeah, for example, the countries like in the whole South America thing, because the kind of the bureaucratic and all those political thing that we might be facing. For example,
Mm.
the whole crypto thing is a yes, it's a huge community with very advanced development. So it's yeah, it's yeah, a lot of potential there. So
Awesome, awesome.
yeah.
That's pretty interesting to know. Now, Chris, whenever I talk about or let's say hear about Paraguay, I can only remember about one football player, Roque Santa Cruz, who is a famous football player. So that's something I would, confirm synonymous with.
Yeah, yeah. So the whole the yeah, particularly football is a
Absolutely.
quite strong thing in South America. So even I remember, so in 2013, 14, we ran a couple of conferences in back in Buenos Aires. So at the end of the conference, so the day after conference, so we used to run like something called Gaucho Day, which is Gaucho is kind of the people that basically it's like the cowboys in US. So the Gaucho is the people who actually works in farms in Argentina.
Mhm.
So it was a kind of a day for socialize and invite all the attendees in a completely kind of completely friendly and not tech day, right? So it's basically more about we went to
Yeah,
a farm. So we went to a farm. We spent the day in the farm as a community, and yeah, and basically it's a must having like a football tournament between all attendees. So that's something that you cannot avoid at all going to, yeah, or even playing or even talking about football. So it's something that you can avoid going to any of those countries. So it's a huge passion for particularly for football. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. There's huge talent in South America with respect to football. Now, Chris, I've just come to know that, I mean, you have contributed to, different, let's say, multiple, community events, across different, geographies and regions. So I just wanted to understand this, like, Chris, how are you able to balance it all?
um, I guess first is with a lot of support from my family. So that's
Okay.
that's that's uh, that's that's the truth. So it's even this is kind of community had been my passion and motivation for many years. So reality is that most of those years, so I had been working in my kind of development DevOps full-time job. Kind of working with community was kind of the side project, right? So it's basically okay. This is I work in development during the day. I work in community during night. I was quite fortunate that like almost 2 years ago, so I joined this company Tetrate, which they really care about community and kind of they gave me the opportunity to do what I really like, and basically kind of showing both my daily work with the community, right? But other than that, so it's yeah, it's just trying to be um, supported to different communities. So the reason why I had been involved in multiple communities also it's somehow connected with my personal interest, right? So in terms of okay, what I wanted to learn at certain period of time, right? So that's basically somehow my personal interest connect me with specific communities, and somehow I try to keep connected with all of them. And the way that probably these communities are still running or something are still happening is, yeah, it's basically with the support of my family, with support of a lot of friends that I was able to made during all these years. And yeah, and the other thing is, all of them happening at different times, right? So it's basically somehow I try to organize for this community something, and yeah, so kind of in a 1 year calendar, trying to be working with multiple projects at different time, and yeah, that's the only way. Otherwise, so it's too much. So for being working, but yeah, so I think that, so I always try to be very active, so in terms of outside my daily job as well. So yeah, I still have the passion and energy to keep this going. So but yeah, so I think that the support of people and many people also kind of being involved after all these years, so make this kind of thing possible as well. So it's not just me; there are multiple people already working on that as well.
That's pretty interesting to know, Chris. Now, Chris, this is a question which I'm pretty much keen to ask you. So, Chris, like, I mean, how do you see the state of the tech communities today, especially in the aftermath of the COVID and the shift in the let's say the in-person events? Like, how do you explain that?
Well, that's definitely was a huge change for community. I think so. The whole events industry was kind of seriously hit by COVID. So that's not something new. But so I guess probably the, the most important impact there was kind of the consequences on the behavior of people after that, right? So it's basically, for example, in Wellington, so in the city where I'm based right now, that used to be a super active tech community, right? So it's basically, we used to run meetups here every month with 60, 70 people in the room every month. So for a small city like Wellington, that used to be a super active and very crowd meetups, right? So after COVID, what happened is that, yeah, people start to be more involved in online things, not going to the office every day. So that start to become a lot more challenging. And reality, what I personally see is that, yeah, many of those communities somehow are dying in terms of at least having that space to connect, right? So which is basically, to me, is the most important thing, right? So in terms of having that opportunity to meet face to face someone and connect other people in the community. So um, and I guess probably, yeah, the whole thing basically, it's we went a lot more online, but also online there is a massive amount of content, so it's very hard to compete, I guess, probably on the online content perspective as well.
I know.
And yeah, so I think that, yeah, so after particularly COVID, that accelerate or make a huge impact on how this work. So basically, yeah, so attending conferences, with the exception of a few like a big conferences, I think that, so a few conferences might be also struggling in trying to get people back to actually attend an in-person event, right? So it's I think that we are facing yeah, we are still facing challenges in terms of kind of keep those space running, and yeah, I'm probably trying to communicate what's the value there, right? Because the value is not necessarily the content that you will see on those community events, but it's mostly the opportunity to connect and interact face to face with other people from the community, with your peers, with people from other organizations as well, right? So in terms of not only about the technology, not only about the content, but also, yeah, trying to understand what other people are doing as well in your local area. So it's
Absolutely. That completely sums up the point. But personally, Chris, I believe that having an in-person event will actually make a difference, because you'll get to know a lot of people in person. You'll shake hands with them, you'll
Yeah,
talk about it, you'll get to know them in reality. But if you're connecting with someone on a virtual basis, let's say with respect to an let's say a tech community event, I don't think the impact would be huge. Personally, if you would ask me that.
it's there is value, so there is some advantages, but yeah, I feel that at the very end, so we are animals that we need to connect with other, right? So it's
Yeah,
basically the experience to kind of uh, seeing the colors with the clothes, with the shaking hands. So it's basically having the opportunity to interact with kind of uh, dynamically with other people. So there is a huge value there, and with people working from home. So yeah, I think that that's good. So that's probably there are many people that uh, find this super valuable. In my personal case, so I like it, but also I find challenging in terms of being absolutely isolated
I know.
and not having the opportunity to even share some time with other people, right? So it's basically that's where the challenge is. I think that from that perspective, it's even very healthy to at least make the commitment to go meet other people and yeah,
Yeah,
so at least once a month or something like that, right? But so I
I
think
know, I know.
that's extremely important. So it's not only it's more a healthy decision. It's something related with the health rather than anything else, right? So
Exactly.
it's
Your social health actually improves, and you'll just get rid of all that stress and that anxiety that you're having when you're isolating yourself from the rest of the world, or let's say from the rest of the city.
yeah, yeah, and particularly with the so with the we are in a we are in currently in the situation which I personally I might be wrong, but so I think that it's with the whole AI thing coming, so it's very challenging for junior people who want to join the industry or not join the industry, want to basically find their first opportunities, right? And I personally think that kind of for those people going understanding what's the value in for example being involved with communities, particularly with your local community, there is a huge value in terms of connecting with people who might be able to give you advice, with people who might be very keen in support in multiple ways, but also with people that potentially might be the people that might help you in actually find the next opportunity in jobs, right? So it's basically
Exactly. Exactly.
and it's very hard to actually build that relationship online, right? So it's basically it's a lot more effective and it's a lot more human being in person and having the opportunity to talk face to face. So I think that in the long term is yeah, it's a win-win situation, and that's basically
Yeah.
what I still kind of strongly believe that that is probably one of the most important thing in terms of connecting people around community, right? So it's
It is there for sure, Chris. Now, Chris, during the COVID time, like, how did you overcome your uncertainty? Like, you're completely into community building and, tech communities. So when COVID struck, how did you overcome the uncertainty that you were having that, okay, when is the COVID going to, go away? Like, a lot of cases are increasing, it's soaring. So how did you, overcome that?
yeah, definitely was a huge level of uncertainty, particularly at that time. So I remember we were kind of involved in organizing a couple of conferences. So that's imply a lot, not even organizational uncertainty, but there was also legal uncertainty because there was so
I know.
many variables that you you never know. So it was the first time that we were facing a situation like that. So yeah, I remember that was a super stressful time. We were extremely fortunate and very grateful that the whole community support the whole process. So we never felt that we were completely alone in that situation. Um, and yeah, I feel that, so even today, after 5 years, so I'm still extremely grateful for the support of the whole community in terms of supporting the project in multiple ways, right? So that was a huge um, support from our community members, and that's basically, I think, that what's make the difference and what's easier for somehow in terms of dive all this situation. But then, so basically what we did is we start to build some online things, which basically was kind of the only way to kind of still try to be connected somehow. Particularly in New Zealand, we have like a less strict process around COVID. So there was months which there was no even COVID in the, because we are an island, so it's basically was we have a
Yeah.
few gaps of time that we were kind of COVID free, and
Okay.
we were actually able to
How
run
lucky.
in person. Yeah. So we were extremely lucky at that point. So somehow that's helped to minimize the impact on the whole process, right? So it's basically we had a, yeah, we were quite lucky in that way. So but yeah, so other than that, so I know that, for example, back in Argentina was one of the most severe and longest process in terms of COVID. So that was very painful, and yeah, and there was meetups that completely moved to online, and the yeah, basically in one meetup they had 500 people attending, right? Because there was no other thing to do, and there was the only way to people to at least do something else, right? So it's yeah, I can imagine was very
Exactly.
stressful. Yeah.
Even the situation in India was really bad. We had, I think, three type of lockdowns. I think, first phase lockdown, second phase lockdown, third phase lockdown. We were literally, scared, like, how is the situation going to turn up? And I think, for 2 months, I didn't even go outside my house. It was that scary. And situation was becoming really worse. But I would say you were very lucky, based in New Zealand, you had a
Yeah.
little bit of space, freedom, to travel around. That's why I totally feel that, New Zealand is a happy country, but in this context, it really explains more.
Yeah. We are very grateful, and we were very lucky. So to be honest, so yeah, so was for us was hard, but so was not that harder as, and we know that, right? So it's basically, yeah. So it's yeah, but it's a kind of an exceptional context. So in terms of, yeah, we are an island, was somehow easier to kind of at least take a few measures in terms of to minimize the risks. So yeah, so it's yeah, but yeah, still a very interesting experience in life. So
Absolutely. I mean, COVID has actually been a very tough and interesting journey. Sometimes it's tough, but at the same time, interesting. I mean, it has its different layers, but I would just, personally tell that personally, it was a very tough time for everyone. But,
yeah,
you know, but, but one good thing with COVID, what happened was, with respect to the tech communities, online, a lot of people connected online and a lot of
yeah,
people started seeing the goodness of it. But I personally prefer that, in-person events always make a difference. So, as I've already
yeah,
mentioned it earlier. Right.
yeah, sure.
So, yeah. So now, Chris, if I would just like to understand this, like what aspects of, let's say the community building and the development actually, fascinate you the most?
Um, I think that again, so that's to us, so particularly to me was like so I found in working with community not only my passion, right? So it's basically it's my passion in terms of how I want to spend my time. Uh, but as a immigrant, for us was like a huge opportunity to give back, right? So that's one thing. So in terms of contributing and trying to give back to the local community. So I think that's one of the most strongest thing that drive our passion in terms of doing community. Um, but yeah, again, so I think that everything at the very end, so everything is about people, right? So it's basically, it's not necessarily about the content. So the content, it's important, but somehow I feel like the content around the tech industry, it's kind of the excuse to basically connect people, right? So it's about connecting people. It's about to somehow giving the opportunity to people who might be interested in learning what is this about, to have like a safe place to start learning and connecting with other people who are already in the industry, right? So I think that that's a kind of one of the key things in doing community stuff. So trying to, yeah, so work in a way that the space are safe, the people is inclusive, and the community is inclusive enough to everyone feel welcome. And at the very end, everyone will take something, right? So it could be like a, again, so in my personal case, is many of my good friends are coming from the community, right? So it's people who I strongly consider my friends. So yeah, they are coming from the tech community, and I met them in community spaces, right? So it's that's, to me, there is a huge value, and somehow I'm advocate for others to also try to have that um, that approach in terms of why it's important to be connected with tech communities if you're in the tech industry.
That's brilliant to know. Now, let's say, Chris, now you're going back to Argentina, or let's say to Uruguay, and meet certain people of the tech community. Like, how do you, inspire them, or let's say, convince them, that you need to be part of this particular community, or let's say, I mean, a DevOps group. Like, what all key initiatives do you take for that?
Uh, I think that, so something that one of the message I'm trying to somehow promote when I work in with folks in particular in South America is that idea that it's initially it's very important to be connected. So think about, okay, so the limit is not your city, the limit is not your country, the limit is worldwide, right? So it's having a
Hmm.
vision that, okay, so you work in the industry where there is no limits, there is no border. So it's basically you need to think this like, okay, I need to, even whatever you do for a local company, for a local community or wherever. So you need to think this like, okay, I need to be globally connected. That's one thing. The other one, which is still extremely important, particularly in for example in South America, which is we are Spanish speaking countries, is what's the importance of learning English, which is something that I kind of learn in, I'm still learning, right? But so I learn in the hard way, right? So and basically that message for people to working in the industry who haven't realized yet what's the real value of being able to communicate in English. That's a very simple advice, but that's something that I strongly always try to highlight to people in that particular region. And the other one is kind of the to particularly in those countries, for them to be aware what's the value and capacity that they actually have in the industry, right? Because uh, I personally see that culturally, the South Latin America culture, so we tend to think that outside everything is better, right? So it's basically I don't know why. So, but so that's basically how in many cases the kind of our mindset works. And after living all those years overseas and kind of being in contact with multiple peoples in multiple regions, and having kind of very likely having access to kind of what is happening in the industry. So yeah, I one of the message that I would like to even uh, maximize in futures opportunities is, hey, we are okay, so we can do it, right? So it's basically, I think that again, so I'm, as I told you before, so I'm extremely optimistic about what is happening in all those countries, and the potential and the talent. It's, I think that is huge. And I think that what we need is more message and more people trying to basically convince local folks to understand that we are okay. So we just need time, support, and probably more goals. But so it's in
Yep.
terms of what potentially can do as a region in the industry. So I think that it's huge. So yeah, yeah.
I feel, Chris, the way you have just put it out, I feel that's a message of the leader. So you're a very good leader in, leading your community and doing the best.
Thank you. I don't know. So it's yeah, it's um, I don't know if I leader pro. It's more about sharing my experience, right? So it's only that. So it's basically what I see. It's basically comparing my personal experience, which not necessarily is the best, right? So it's basically, but it's basically what I know the most because I was there. And the other thing where I sometimes I see folks that it's actually a situation where I was in the past, right? So it's basically what I'm trying to. I want. I know, and something that I want to do more is about. Okay, so I was there, so that was my perspective at the same time, but this is what I learned, right? So this is what I found out with all those years and my personal experience. So I don't know. So my work for me, my work for others as well, hopefully, but otherwise, so yeah, it's just trying to at least help others to yeah make life easier and better, right? So it's
Indeed, indeed, that's for sure, completely. Now, Chris, like in your personal experience, like is there any standout moment or experience from the tech communities that you have attended that had a lasting impact on you?
um, well. That's one of the grateful thing in being involved in community, right? So you are all the time. So I constantly meet people that say, "Hey, I'm currently working on this job because I met someone on one of your conferences," right? So it's basically it's kind of okay. So even you don't know what is happening in background around people connecting, but so there is a lot of things happening actually in that space, right? So it's basically people connecting, finding the next opportunity, from the professional perspective, but also from the personal perspective as well, right? So I think that all those connections, once you basically are aware that somehow happened, so that's extremely grateful. And basically that's at the very end is what's pay all the for in terms of being involved with community. So that's a huge um, and very important thing to from my perspective. And the other one is, yeah, so kind of knowing people that they somehow they, whatever you do was part of, or help them to somehow be part of the industry, or at least give a try to say, hey, there is an opportunity for me to make a change, to learn a new things, change my job, change my career. Somehow all those activities that we run, it's somehow helping them to navigate that new experience. So when yeah, that's something that is extremely valuable from my personal perspective, and I'm extremely grateful to having the opportunity to somehow do those small impacts in people, right? So it's I think that at the very end, so that's the whole goal in terms of yeah, adding some kind of value to people, right? So, and I think that, so yeah, knowing those experiences is super grateful for me.
Brilliant, brilliant. Like, I mean, you just give given me the idea of it. Now, is there any live example that you would like to share? Like, you attended this particular event and one particular person has actually influenced you a lot. So who was that, who was that particular person that, that client or let's say any close friend that, had a lasting impact on you?
um, there was a recent one, so I have from two perspectives, right? So it's basically, one is I personally attend a conference, like was an e-learning conference, like 20. I attend that conference like 20 years ago. Uh, one of the speakers, so it's basically one of the speakers. So I don't remember the name of the conference. I don't remember any of those speakers, but I particularly remember that specific speaker that I have been following for many years. And for example, that specific guy. So like 2 years ago, I was working in a like a, in a an educational project that I was planning to somehow develop, and this guy became one of the guys that I reach out to him. I say, hey, I met you like so many years ago. I had been following all your sharings in terms of education, in terms of organizations. I have this project related to community. Would you be able to have a chat with me so to discuss the idea? And he gave me huge insights in terms of what what I actually was thinking about the project, right? So, and that's where, part in my personal experience, how I see the value of the value and the power of connecting with those people, right? It's it's about that you never know when in life one of those contexts contacts will be uh, important for in your life, right? So that's one thing. And on the other side, so as an organizer, actually a few months ago, I was talking to a guy who actually, he's actually very active in the community. So he's actually doing huge progress in terms of not only at the community level but also at the professional level. And he said, I started working on IT 3 years ago. And I said, oh, that's good, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, because I was working a in security in a data center back in Japan, right? So, and I say, okay, so when he said that, so I thought that he was working in the in the security IT department for the data center, right? So, but
Okay.
but no, he was actually working. He was actually the guy who was in the he, his responsibility was actually allowing people to go inside the building, right? So it's basically he was actually a security guy, and because he was exposed to that huge data center, that at that time he didn't know what's actually was this about. and he connect the idea. Okay, so he's so huge data center. He Because his shop, he had a lot of kind of time to study, so he started to study while he
Oh,
was in doing he worked in the security in the data center. Um, and one of the first sessions that he joined at that time was a meetup. It was a kind of a workshop that we ran online. He actually joined from Japan, and kind of that was kind of one of the first experience for him working in community. And yeah, he told me that a couple of months ago, and even it's a very simple thing. So yeah, I found that super valuable because somehow, yeah, I feel that was worth the contribution that we are doing to people, and that was a real example of at least the 2 cents that we contribute to this guy. And yeah, very happy for that.
that's pretty interesting, Chris. Now, Chris, I just come to know that you have gone about creating, let's say, inclusive and let's say multiple global communities, across diverse cultures and geographies. So, like, what are the pre-preparations that you have done for that?
um, I think that the yeah, again, so something that we mentioned before, so that this idea to always be conscious about building inclusive spaces, inclusive and safe spaces is kind of the key in terms of how to run the community, right? So it's basically no matter where you run a community event, so that's by default must be the kind of rule number one, right? So it's basically nothing will happen if people don't feel even appreciate or they don't feel
Yeah,
safe, right? So it's I guess there are obviously cultural differences. So depend if you run a meetup in New Zealand, Australia, or Argentina or Brazil. So you can feel there is a somehow cultural differences, no bigs, but so they are there. So that's natural thing. But so I feel that what is in common in all of them is basically this idea to by day zero make a very respectful place for everyone, right? So that's I think that's the key, and that's what's basically what we try to do, and that's something that we insist, and we are very lucky that people in in our case, so it's extremely respectful, and yeah, we never had any issue or anything. So yeah, so I think that people at this stage, so it's the community is mature enough to understand what's the whole thing, and yeah, I think that's very important. But on the other hand, so I think that yeah, I personally think that yeah, we need less and less explain this because people are being more conscious about the value of everyone being respected and everyone feel inclusive. Yeah, so it's
brilliant, brilliant. That's pretty much a good point to know. Now, Chris, let's say one of your friend, or let's say one of your close person is from Argentina or Uruguay, and he knows a little bit of English, or let's say basic of English, and if he has to come all the way to New Zealand to participate in a tech community, he has that hesitation to speak in English. So, how do you help him out of how to help him? How do you help him out to come out of that shell and interact with the other people in that particular community?
um, well that's so to be fair, so when I moved to New Zealand, so I actually didn't speak English. So that,
Okay,
that probably
okay.
could be myself, right? So it's basically, and again, so this is what I did. So that was my personal kind of strategy on this. So I arrived to New Zealand on a Friday day,
Okay.
and on Monday, so I attend my first meetup. So
Oh my.
and there was around, I remember there was around 100 people. I don't remember even the name of the meetup, so I don't remember much. And but there was, I remember there was about kind of business on internet. There was around 100 people, and I was able to understand so little about English. So, but that's how I start to pressure myself to be exposed, right? So it's basically there is no way that if you are not exposed to learn,
Exactly.
right? So it's basically so uh, obviously that was not the most clever or the most or it was not the best strategy. So I personally don't recommend doing that. I think that uh, I think that kind of learning and being exposed to new language before actually you move, so it would be the ideal. But so
Oh,
you
yeah.
if you have no the chance, so I think that so trying to maximize the exposure is it's the first thing. And the other one is so kind of on the second meetup, which actually was the next week, I met
Okay.
I met a friend who actually right now after 13 14 years he's still my friend, right? So that's a
Wow.
value, that's a value on kind of being involved on those kind of activities. So it's not only about the being exposed, it's about to maybe connecting with the right person that could be the person that is going to
Mm,
help
yeah.
you a lot in the whole process while you kind of transition to a new city, a new country, or whatever, right? So that's where I think the value is. The people always is very, very keen, and people is always very keen in helping others, right? So it's basically the only thing is that you need to let them know that you need help somehow, right? But so once you express your that you are open to learning more, that you are open to opportunities and possibly give and give your support to other as well. So there is some kind of magic that happened there, and people will help. So I think that the important thing is first finding the those spaces to actually connect with people. The second one is basically being able to communicate what you actually need, right? So once you kind of find those two things, people will help. Um, and
Exactly.
that's something that I personally have learned from my own experience, but also it's something that I see every day at any of those our community events or at any other community event as well, right? So it's
That's a pretty useful, let's say, I would say playbook, or let's say a blueprint for me, to understand, or let's say, I mean, I also have that zest of learning different languages. So probably when I learn a different language, or let's say go to a new country where that English is not spoken, probably I need to follow this method. So it's a good piece of advice from your end, Chris. Now, Chris, when was the time you actually moved from Argentina to New Zealand? Like, which year was that?
was in 2013. Yeah,
Okay.
early. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's 12 years now. So
12 years is pretty long, I would say.
it's it's for we moved. So when we moved here, our two daughters were very very young. So they actually the youngest was 2 years old. So
Okay.
yeah, for example, for her was almost her entire life. So it's it's a long time.
So probably she's become a proper New Zealand person now rather than, Argentinian.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, all right. So now, Chris, I would just like to understand this. Like, from your view, how do you, how do you think the grassroots events and the local meetups are compared? I mean, are compared with respect to the, let's say, the large conferences and the corporate-led events in terms of the value and the impact that it provides.
Mm. Um, yeah, huge value. So to me is kind of the core of the community, right? So everything start in a meetup. So everything start very very small, and in most of cases, right? So there are exceptions, but so in most cases, so this is how everyone start, and this is from my perspective the kind of the ideal roadmap for someone who wants to be involved in community. And the reason is because, yeah, so being involved with your local communities
Okay.
is very accessible in terms of from the economic point of view, but also from distance, and also when you go there, it's your people, right? So it's your community, it's the people who actually have the same experiences in terms of not only the technology, not only, but so also the whole ecosystem, right? So in the city or wherever. So and usually the meetups are very friendly and very safe spaces for people to start to kind of being exposed to others, right? So it's wherever you want to connect with someone or you want to learn something and share and basically speak in public. So I think that the meetup is a must place to go to practice and to improve your kind of your soft skills in the community. And yeah, so basically the process is, from my perspective, is you connect with your local community through meetups. So that's basically the next step. Probably will connect you with some local conference.
Okay.
Usually in local conferences, you might connect with some folks from overseas, and that's basically how you somehow you start building your network and connecting with a kind of a bigger community, right? So, but yeah, definitely the local thing is extremely important. Not only for that, so it's basically because usually the content and the level of conversation might be a lot more relevant to you as well, right? Because it's something that might be at the scale that you are. Um, because you're immersed in the same ecosystem, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's maybe okay. So, for example, New Zealand. New Zealand is a small country with a small population, and that's basically it's something that definitely impact in many things. For example, how we in the requirements that we had, for example, for our system infrastructure, right? So it's something that simple like that, right? So it's basically we
Yeah.
don't have the scale of India or Brazil or US, right? So it's
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
and sometimes, yeah, so sometimes the content even on technical sessions might be relevant from that perspective, right? So it's that's yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That explains it. So, since you just gave the example of New Zealand, I mean, was there any example where, I mean, was there any instance where, the New Zealand community, let's say, connected with the Australian community? Like, was there any crossover with respect to the, let's say the community building or let's say the tech communities that you were part of?
Yeah, so I think that because we are kind of Australia and New Zealand are kind of far away from almost everywhere, so that's make us very close in many ways, particularly in the community. I know that there are some rivalries, but I'm not going to deep on that
Okay.
in some sports or something like that. But so it's that's very something that
I
would
know.
be expected. But yeah, so for example, rugby, so those sports are very
Oh,
popular
yes,
here.
yes,
So yeah, I know that
of course.
and cricket, so those things. So it's quite strong here in New Zealand and Australia. So yeah, but yeah, so w- we are a very even they are two different countries. So I think that the communities are very connected and yeah, and there are many things happening. There are some communities, for example, that run 1 year the event in Australia, the next year in New Zealand, and yeah, so that's the way that they try to, or at least they used to run those events in the past. And for example, from business perspective. So many organizations, they consider like Australia, New Zealand, like one market, right? So it's basically that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I think that we are extremely, we are culturally very very similar,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that, so yeah, there is a lot of interaction, and a lot of exchange in terms of community because of that reason. Yeah.
That's a brilliant point. And yes, I mean, I totally relate to that because, everyone, whenever I tell them Australia or something, they're like, okay, that's pretty far. How is Australia like? This is the myth everyone has about Australia. But once, if they explore Australia and New Zealand for themselves, the myth will just go off.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, for us, it's just depending which city you go, but it's a 3-4 hours flight maximum, right? So, and other than that, so it's more than 10 hours to wherever you want to go, right? So it's any
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
kind of
I
other
know.
big country. So yeah, so you need to keep in mind that you will have at least, yeah, 10-12 hours on a flight. So at least from New Zealand.
That is a
So yeah.
compromise which has to be made, but there's no other go for that.
Yeah, sure. Except that you want to go to Antarctica, right? So it's probably that's
Chris, Antarctica is pretty close to Melbourne, If I can just take a flight, or
yeah,
let's say
yeah,
it's pretty close by.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, because Melbourne has a weather literally like Antarctica. It's a lot of cold winds. So for us, I mean, that itself is like a glimpse of Antarctica. So I don't think for us to, go to Antarctica would be the right option because we every time experience that kind of a winter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, I was born in the very very south of Argentina, in the very very south. So that's
Okay.
actually very close to Antarctica. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I have lived my entire life very close to Antarctica. So in terms of countries, right? So it's basically
Oh,
it's so I remember like 2 or 3 years ago, I went to, for the first time, for the very very first time. So I went to Singapore, which is kind of in the Ecuador,
the
and
tropical
yeah,
part. Yeah.
I almost died. So it's that's
Oh.
I'm an Antarctic person. So
Okay, I know.
yeah, yeah,
When I go to a place which is so cold for me, it's different because I come from a place that's completely tropical and there's a little bit of, humidity,
yeah.
or let's say how do I say that? That sunlight, all of that. But when I went to Melbourne for the first time, oh my God, that was a different feel I had.
Well,
Yeah,
Wellington is quite similar. So I
all
guess
right.
probably in terms of the weather is quite similar to Melbourne. Yeah, probably it's more cold here, so it's cooler. So it's yeah, I'm happy with that. So
Got it,
I'm
got
very
it.
happy with that. Yeah.
That completely sums up the point. Now, Chris, before we conclude our podcast initiative, let's take a lighter route. Now we were already talking about entirely throughout this journey about your community building, the initiatives that you have taken, entirely about your community building journeys, and the live use cases about what inspired you the most. Now we're going to take a lighter route where we're going to talk about your personal interest and likes. So the first question to you, Chris, like since you come from Argentina, I'm pretty
Yeah.
keen to understand this. Like, what's your favorite football club?
Yeah, it's a River Plate. So it's
River Plate.
so in Argentina, the most two kind of important clubs team are Boca Juniors and River Plate. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan, but so yeah, I support River Plate. So yeah, so it's that's
Okay.
my team. That's my team. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Like now, if I would like to ask you more about River Plate, who's been your favorite River Plate player of all time?
There was a play. I think that it was a. I don't remember the name. Kanisha was one of the. He was actually one of the. He used to play in the national team as well. But yeah, Kanisha was the probably one of the most players that I like more. And there was one in back in the in the 90s called Alzamendi. He was from Uruguay, but he used to play in River Plate. So
Okay.
those type of players that, yeah, they I remember they used to score a lot of goals. So yeah, so it's a super uh, aggressive player. So yeah, I think that those two are probably the most that I remember most. Yeah.
Now, now, since Argentina has won the World Cup in, 2022, now which player of Argentina do you like the most? I mean, I would not be surprised if you would say it is Lionel Messi, but apart from him, is there anyone else?
I think that the goalkeeper is it's I don't remember his last name, but so the goalkeeper is a good one, so really good one. So yeah, actually I think that I'm more supportive of the goalkeeper than anyone else in the team. So it's
Yeah.
the in Argentina there was a there was no only Messi, but we used to have Maradona as well
Yes, yes,
as a
yes.
and even they kind of they were able to kind of win the World Cup. So it's basically there was in
Yeah.
a different time and completely different styles as well in terms of playing. So it's yeah, we were lucky to have like a those two Maradona Messi players. So I think that yeah, so it's yeah, it's a lot of football players back in the whole South America. So it's a yeah, it's a big thing there.
Absolutely, it's a huge thing. Now, if I would just like to ask you, like, what is that Argentinian food that you would like to, recommend to our listeners and to me?
Um, well, definitely asado. It's the most popular and the probably is the food that every tourist going to Argentina it's going to probably go for. So but that's a meat. Argentina is very popular with food with meat. So it's even um, so probably right now the whole cuisine changed a lot more with being more having more vegetarian options. But so back in the day, so there was like a meat was on the only option, right? So it's basically, and
Yeah.
actually I don't eat meat, and when I
Oh,
was yeah, and when I was young, so I stopped eating meat when I was 14 years old, something like that. And I remember that I used to go to my friend's house, and when I say that I don't eat meat, they say, "Okay, don't worry. So we have chicken or we have something." So it's basically, so it's basically it's a very meat focused culture. But yeah, so meat is very strong. We have a huge influence from Italian cuisine as well. So
hmm.
everything around pizzas, pastas. So that's super good in Argentina as well. And we have probably really good wine as well. So the whole west region next
Hmm.
to the to the mountains, to the Andes. So that's a very productive winery region. So yeah, wines in Argentina are also quite good as well. So yeah, it's there is a whole kind of tourist circuit around food and yeah. So it's between Buenos Aires and the west region of Mendoza and that part. So it's heavily in wine. So it's yeah,
Right.
very interesting experiences there. So
Awesome, awesome. That's good to know. Now, like, what thing about, Wellington do you like the most? Like, why do you feel that, people should visit Wellington?
well, I think that so New Zealand, it's the whole, not only Wellington, New Zealand is a great country. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful. So it's like wherever you go, you will see very nice landscapes. So the whole cities are very nice, are clean. So it's I think that the whole kind of infrastructure, culture, and the geography is extremely nice in New Zealand. So yeah, whoever want to visit here, so yeah, I totally recommend visiting New Zealand. So it's a very very friendly country, very nice people. So
Okay.
yeah, so you always will feel very very welcome here. So yeah, it's definitely it's a New Zealand should be in the list for everyone to at least visit once in life. So it's a very nice country. Yeah.
I have that feeling of visiting New Zealand, and it's always there in my bucket list. Probably, because seeing the close proximity with Australia, I'll definitely visit it someday, and surely meet you in
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah. You're more than welcome to come anytime. So yeah, yeah. We'll see
Awesome.
the wine also here is good. So if you like
Fine,
wine,
fine.
or in particular in Wellington, coffee is extremely good as well. So
Okay,
coffee is good, good, good. So it's yeah. So you will
awesome,
definitely
awesome.
enjoy.
This question I personally wanted to ask you, like, why do you think that Argentina has a lot of influences with Italy?
Well, there was after the World World War II, so there was a massive migration from Europe, particularly from Italy and Spain. So that's why Argentina is heavily influenced by
Okay,
particularly for those cultures. Uh, but yeah, so you will see in Argentina there is a kind of yeah very strong influence from many countries from Europe for that reason. So at that time, so was a country that actually was receiving immigrants because the economy and the Argentina used to be a very strong country at that
okay.
time.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice.
basically they were welcoming immigrants to basically yeah populate the country, and that's why yeah there is huge communities from Germany, Poland,
Okay.
Spain,
All right.
Italy. So it's yeah. So Portugal. So there are huge communities there from many European countries, and but particularly Italian and Spain. So they were kind of the biggest communities that migrate to Argentina, and that's why kind of they strongly influence the whole Argentinian cuisine, right? So it's
That's pretty interesting to know. Now I totally get the idea of it, and it's really, really a nice, phase of chapter. What I could just say, like, of
yeah.
history. Yeah. So, Chris, thank you so much once again for, finally taking time from your busy schedule. And, finally, our collaboration has finally transpired into this beautiful initiative. And thank you so much again for being part of this initiative and, sharing your time and sharing your insights and your views about community building and tech community. So I'm pretty sure that after this podcast initiative, a lot of listeners will actually approach you and they'll talk more about how do you build a community. So any questions you have, guys, just reach out to Mr. Chris Mazur, and he's always there on LinkedIn, and that's his LinkedIn ID as well. So you can have it from there.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate, yeah, yes, your invitation and your time, and yeah, I hope that some of the ideas that we share are probably helpful for folks in the community, and yeah, and anyone who actually want to reach out. So yeah, feel free to do it. So I'm more than happy to help as much as I can if I can. So it's yeah, more than happy to do that. So yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Awesome, awesome.
Mhm.
So, listeners, also what I'm going to do is I'm going to share. I mean the ID of Chris with respect to our podcast episode, and you can reach out to Chris anytime, and Chris would get back to you as soon as possible. So, listeners, on this note, this is your host Akhil Navluri signing off. We would be back with another podcast episode with another eminent and prominent industry leader very soon. So, till then, take care, keep listening. Goodbye, take care, thank you, and au revoir. Thank you.